Today, we are diving into a story that feels both ancient and incredibly modern. It's about a divine message arriving in a city bursting with power and pride, and the absolute firestorm of opposition it ignited. And what a story it is! It teaches us something huge about the nature of truth and, well, the ultimate price of hatred. Let's get into it.
This really is a universal theme, isn't it? Whenever some big, new, transformative idea comes along, the first reaction is almost always hostility. The story we're exploring today, set in ancient Makkah, is honestly one of the most powerful examples of this struggle you'll ever find.
Alright, so let's set the scene. Picture this. We're in Makkah. At its very heart is the sacred Kaaba, which was a huge deal, a focal point for worship in the whole region. The city was a hub for trade. It was flush with cash and full of powerful tribes. But spiritually, man, this was a city living in the shadows.
And what's so fascinating here is the contrast. On the surface, Mecca looked like it was winning. You had all this wealth, powerful clans, a real strong sense of identity. But underneath all that shine, things were different. It was a society drowning in idol worship and arrogance, where they'd kind of lost their way, lost that connection to the one true God.
And right into this world, this mix of wealth and spiritual darkness, something new was about to explode onto the scene. And it wasn't just a quiet suggestion. It was a revolutionary call that was going to challenge the entire system, everything Makkah was built on. So, with any big change, you're going to get pushback, right? But here's the twist. In Makkah, the fiercest opposition wasn't from some foreign enemy. It came from right inside the Prophet Muhammad's own family.
So on one side, you've got Abu Lahab, the Prophet's actual uncle, and on the other, his wife, Jamil. These two were rich, they had power, and they basically put themselves at the head of the campaign to crush this new faith before it could even start. And this quote, wow, it just lays it all out there. When Jamil says this, she's swearing by Lat and Uzza. These were two of the main idols they worshipped. So you see, this wasn't just some polite disagreement. This was personal. This was a vow to protect her traditions, her power, her entire way of life by any means necessary.
And her hate wasn't just words, she took action. We're told that every single night, while the city slept, she would personally go out and lay this trap of thorns right in the Prophet's path. It was this calculated, cruel ritual, a physical way of saying, I will make your journey painful every single step of the way.
So all this tension, it was like a pressure cooker, and it was about to explode. It all came to a head when the Prophet decided to go public, gathering all the tribes of Makkah right at the foot of Mount Safa.
But before he gets to the main point, he asks them something really clever. He puts this simple question to them. He's not asking for blind faith. He's basically saying, you guys know me, you know my character. Am I a liar?
And check out their response. It's unanimous. Everyone agrees. And this is so important. Why? Because it proves that when they later rejected his message, it wasn't because they thought he was lying. They had already gone on record, all of them, saying he was the most trustworthy person they knew. So once they all agreed he was telling the truth, then he delivers the core message, a warning and an invitation, a call to turn away from all their idols and come back to worshiping the one true God. You could have heard a pin drop. The crowd is just stunned into silence. And then one person explodes with anger. It's his own uncle, Abu Lahab, and he curses him right there in front of everyone. This wasn't just some guy disagreeing. This was it, the first open shot fired in a war against the message.
And right then and there, as the words are still hanging in the air, a response comes down directly from the heavens. This verse became the start of a new chapter in the Quran, a direct, powerful condemnation of Abu Lahab's defiance, sealing his fate right there for everyone to hear and for all of history to remember.
So, you might think a divine revelation, right then and there, would shut them up, right? Nope. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. The public showdown in the verses from heaven just made them even more furious. And the persecution, well, it ramped up big time.
And Jamil, she was absolutely enraged that she and her husband were named in this revelation. So what does she do? She grabs a rock and storms into the most sacred place in the city, the area around the Kaaba, ready to do violence, just totally consumed by rage.
And what happens next is just unbelievable. It's told as a straight-up miracle. She finds the Prophet's close friend Abu Bakr and demands to know where the Prophet is.
But here's the thing. She's looking right at him, and she can't see him. He was sitting right there, but it's as if he was hidden by a divine veil, completely shielded from her hate.
So, since they couldn't get to the leaders, their cruelty was turned on the people who were most vulnerable. You had people like Bilal, a slave being tortured under the scorching desert sun, his only response being the constant whisper, "God is one." The family of Ammar faced things that are hard to even imagine, which led to his mother, Sumaya, becoming the very first martyr in Islam. And even the Prophet himself wasn't safe from being physically attacked, even while he was praying. Okay, so remember that chapter in the Quran revealed on the mountain? It didn't just condemn them, it actually foretold their ruin. And the last part of this story is all about how that prophecy played out, piece by piece. For Abu Lahab, the man who had everything, money, status, power, it all started to fall apart. He was struck with a terrible disease, so foul that his own children abandoned him. In the end, all his wealth and all his connections were useless. He died alone and disgraced. And what about Jamil? Let's go back to that signature act of hers. Remember that rope she used every single night to carry those bundles of thorns?
Well, and what has to be one of the most incredible moments of poetic justice, tradition tells us that she tripped and was strangled by that exact same rope. And as she died, that expensive necklace she was so proud of, a symbol of her status, just fell to the ground, totally worthless. The very instrument of her hate became the instrument of her end.
So at the end of the day, what's the final score? On one side, you have Abu Lahab and Jamil. Their legacy? They became a warning, a cautionary tale for all of history about what happens when arrogance and hate consume you. And on the other side, the message they fought so hard to stop, well, it didn't just survive, it flourished, and the man they tried so hard to harm became known as a mercy to all the worlds.
Look, we might not have people throwing actual thorns in our path today, but we all face our own struggles, right? Our own opposition. This story is this timeless reminder that even though hatred might be the loudest voice at first, things like patience and faith have a power that lasts. So the real question for us is, what can we take from that when we face the challenges in our own lives?